So this next Tellervo tutorial will take you through the administrative steps of adding and editing users and groups to your Tellervo system, and also for accessing and changing the permission settings for each of these groups. So as you'd expect for such an administrative function, only certain privileged users can access these features. So you need to be a member of the admin group to do this. So to access the users and groups interface, you go to the administration menu and choose users and groups. And you'll also need to confirm your admin credentials as well. Now this will bring up the interface. And as you can see, we have three main tabs here. We have one showing you a list of all the users on the system, one showing you all the groups, and we also have a tree view as well, which can be useful for helping you see the relationships of how users fit into each of the different groups. So as you can see, we have a very basic empty database here with just a single user. This is the admin user. And of course, you won't really want to be using this admin user, for your day-to-day work. So what we're going to do now is create a new user using the new button. I'm just going to now create myself a record. And I get to choose which groups I'm going to belong to, so I'm going to set myself into the admin group and also the staff group. And give myself a password. And then I simply press the create button. And you see that's added me into the list. While I'm at it, I'm also going to create another one. And I'm just going to add this user into the staff group. So there we have our three users in the system there. So if we now move over to the Groups tab, we have 4 default groups that come with the basic empty Tellervo database. We have the administrator group, which is the main privileged group, which only the sort of most trusted users in your lab should be entered into. So the majority of other people at the moment should be going into the staff and the students group, but you can create a whole host of other groups, depending on the needs for your lab. We also have one special group here called for read-only users. So this is designed for if you're wanting to give external users access to your data, but obviously you won't want them necessarily being able to edit or delete your data. So this any members within this group will only be able to read data from your system. So if we select one of these and do edit, you'll see the table here will show you a list of all the users that belong to that group. So this is the staff group. So if you remember, I just created 2 users, myself and Joe Blogs, both of which I entered into the staff group. So we are listed there in that table. You can also see here checkboxes showing you the default permissions for this group. So for staff, the default permissions allow users to create, read, update, and delete records in the database. So this is the if permissions aren't altered overridden in any way, the default permissions for users for this group are create, read, update, and delete. However, if we switch over to the students group, you can see here we don't actually have any students any users in this group yet, but you'll see that any users that were in this group would only by default have the read permissions, so they wouldn't be able to create new records, and they wouldn't be able to update or delete any records that were already in the system. So for completeness sake, let's create a new user and add add this user to this students group. So now if we switch back to the Groups tab and edit the Students table, you'll see now we have Jane Doe in this student group. So those default permissions, as I say, are the permissions settings for the if no other permissions are set, these are the default permissions for the group. However, particularly for something like a students group where we have a limited read-only access to the database, you may particularly want to allow your students to work on a particular site. So if you're doing a class and you have a group of students, you want them to be able to create and update records in a particular site without being able to edit or delete data elsewhere in the system. So to do that, we need to exit out of the user and groups interface, and then we go to the administration metadata browser. So if we find the site that we're interested in changing the permissions on, we can select it, and then if we do a right click, it brings up a pop-up menu, and we can then if you are a member of the admin group, you can then do view permissions. So this gives us an overview of the particular access permissions for this site. So here we have a list of the groups and the permissions that have been set for the groups for this particular site. So we see here we have our 4 main groups, and you can see they're all set using the the main database defaults. And we can also switch over to the Users with Access tab, and this gives us a summary of all the users and how their permissions work out for this particular site. So, for instance, you can see here the admin user and me both have full access to this particular site, and this is because we are administrative users. However, Joe Blogs, he also has these full permissions to the site, but this is because of they are set on the database defaults. So admin users, basically that overrides everything, all other settings in the database. If you're an admin user, it means you can do anything. You are the super user for the system. And at the bottom here we have Jane Doe. If you remember, she's the user I entered into the student group, and you can see at the moment Jane only has read access to this particular site. So if we decide then that we actually want the students to be able to create and update but not delete particular entries for this site, we can simply tick them on here. And you can see here on the right hand side it shows us that these permissions are set because they've been overridden at the object level. And also something I should have shown you, so if we go back to the permissions page, if we go to the Users with Access tab, you can now see the Jane Doe user. She has create, read and update permissions for this site now, but these are because they've been overridden. So these, although her database-wide default permission is only to have read access, it means because we've overridden on this particular site, she can now access to, she can create, read and update these entries within this system. So we can access these permissions at the object level. We can also access them at the element level, and also all the way down at the series level as well if you want. So being able to change values at the series levels means that if you have chronologies in your database, you can give users particular chronologies that they can read or edit. So one of the other features I wanted to show you, I wanted to go back to the users and group admin page. So one feature you'll probably find quite useful is the ability to reset passwords. So obviously the occasions arise where people forget their passwords, and so as an admin user you can go into the users and group admin page and select a user and do edit, and then you can then reset their password. So obviously you'll need to provide your admin password details, and then you can choose a new password for that user. Perhaps another feature to show you here is Tellervo also restricts certain aspects of passwords. So remembering that theoretically your database can be opened up on the internet for users from outside your institute to access. So it's quite important to maintain a certain level of security within your passwords. So for instance, we don't allow passwords to be too short, and we also prefer you to use slightly more complex passwords as well. So you'll see here at the bottom whether Tellervo is happy with the password that you're providing. Another aspect before I finish, I just wanted to talk through the ability to delete users. So although it's possible to delete users within the system, as you can see, we can select a user and press delete. A lot of the time that isn't actually going to be desirable. So even if you have say a particular employee that has worked and done work in your system and then leaves your lab for another job, we don't then delete the entry for that user within the database, because we want to maintain the information about what that user has done. So we want to continue to know which particular series that person is measured. So for that to happen, we need to have them remain in the database. But of course, you don't want to maintain users' access to the system even when once they've left. So what we do is we have the ability to enable or disable a particular account. So once a user has finished their work, you will then typically disable that account. So although that student is that particular person is still in the system, you can see they're not enabled, so they won't be able to log in anymore. They won't be able to do any more changes or even read from the database. And if you find that you've got many people in this system, so if you've got, after a few years, you may have a lot of students that no longer are working in the lab, you can simplify the interface by just hiding all those accounts, so you just get to see who is still in the system. Perhaps the last feature I just wanted to talk to you about is the tree view component. At the moment, this is this is kind of a feature that we're sort of working on. So within the database, within future releases of the Tellervo system, we're going to enable you to have nested groups. In which case, so for instance, you could have a students group, and then you could have multiple subgroups, for your different classes. Maybe 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013 classes, as separate groups, and with the users within those subgroups. So this is this will, once we've got this fully operational, this will be a really handy way. So you can then just set the permissions information on the students group, and all these permissions then will be inherited by the subgroups and all the users within those subgroups. But it also means that you will then very easily be able to disable an entire group. So with a single click, you'll be able to then disable access to your all your students from a particular class. Okay, I think that's all that I wanted to show you. again, if you have any problems with this, you have any questions, please get in touch, and I'll do my best to help you out. Thanks very much.